Good evening, UTLA family. Welcome to the 2021 UTLA Leadership Conference. I want to first take a moment to say thank you to all of the UTLA officers, my executive director, UTLA board members, and UTLA staff for being anchors for the work of this organization. Thank you to my executive assistant, Evie, for taking on this role with style, grace, and fierceness. Thank you, Mom, for bearing witness and channeling my dad, Cecil, at all times. To my son, Giovanni, thank you for loving me, asking questions, and walking with me when the challenges were at the door. Your light colors my world. Thank you to my partner, Van Cedric, for every long distance, date night, comforting words, listening ear, guiding voice, and helping me to always see beauty and humility. Thank you to my girlfriends. Y'all know who you are, for allowing me to just be me and reminding me to straighten my crown. I love y'all for real, for real. Today, we come together at a time of loss, struggle, and hope. Civil rights pioneer Claudette Colvin said, "When it comes to justice, there is no easy way to get it. You can't sugarcoat it. You have to take a stand." Her words sum up so much of our year, when educators and families united for a safe physical return to schools, and her words reflect our work ahead to win the healthy, healing, and equitable schools our students deserve. Not everyone knows Claudette Colvin's story. In 1955, Colvin was a 15-year-old black high school student in Montgomery, Alabama. Riding home from school one day, she refused to move to the back of the bus and give up her seat. 9 months before, Rosa Parks did the very same thing. What inspired Colvin to take a stand? In her segregated high school, her class had been studying black leaders like Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth, and discussing the injustices they were experiencing daily under the Jim Crow segregation laws of the American South in the 1950s. Colvin said about her actions that day, "History kept me stuck to my seat. It felt like Sojourner Truth was on one side pushing me down, and Harriet Tubman was on the other side of me pushing me down. I couldn't get up." I share her story to uplift a righteous leader. I share her story to uplift the power of culturally relevant curriculum. And I share her story to uplift the classroom space that helped ignite her courageous stand. Unique in the American landscape, public schools have the power to educate, to inspire, to create spaces where students can feel their humanity and affirm their agency over their own lives. Our learning spaces are special places that must be celebrated and protected. Public education itself must be celebrated and protected. Protected from the threat of privatization. Protected from historic disinvestment. And protected from lapsing back into the status quo that wasn't working for all of our students. Tonight, I'll lay out a vision of how we can do that essential work together. We will mark the year we endured and the amazing ways educators and families stepped up in this moment for our students. We will mark our life-saving fight for a safe return to physical campuses. And we will look at the promise of the year ahead as we lean into our unity and build a visionary platform for public education. When I say we will do that essential work together, I mean all of us. UTLA members are classroom teachers, teacher librarians, and academic counselors. We are pupil services and attendance counselors, speech and language pathologists, home hospital teachers, infant special education teachers, substitute teachers, and arts instructors. We are itinerant specialists, adult educators, psychiatric social workers, audiometrists, and career and technical education teachers. We are dance teachers, coordinators, school psychologists, coaches, and early childhood educators. We are audiologists, school nurses, occupational and physical therapists, and physical education teachers. UTLA's tent is big because our members support the whole child, head, heart, and soul. And what you all pulled off last school year was nothing short of miraculous. I am so proud to be an educator and so proud of the dedicated professionals who are our union. We must uplift our critical partners, parents, grandparents, and guardians who showed up in new and profound ways to support their children's learning. In the most challenging year in our professional lives, educators dug deep to push past exhaustion and to tap into innovation. You flipped your classrooms and workspaces to virtual overnight and then flipped them again to the imperfect hybrid model. You learned digital platforms on the fly so you could engage students virtually. You dipped into your own pockets to buy computer screens and upgrade your internet. You repurposed kitchens and living rooms into vibrant learning spaces. All year long, you kept our babies safe, educated, and empowered at a time when despair was running rampant. We think of Jeremy Zwang Weissman, an 8th grade science teacher at Virgil Middle School, who kept his hugely popular drumline group going by having students drum on books and pillows on Zoom. We think of Baldwin Hills elementary teacher Arian White, who created a Star Wars-inspired alter ego called Chad Vader to delight and engage his young learners. We think of our entire team of school nurses who were among the first UTLA members back onto our schools, gowned up, masked up, to keep our communities safe through testing and screening and later jump-starting the school site vaccination program. We think of Hamilton High teacher Mia Young Adebea and Southgate High teacher Michelle Tuseda, who early in the pandemic created a Facebook group for teachers to share tips on distance learning. Their page quickly exploded and now has more than 22,000 educator members worldwide. We think of psychiatric social worker Angela Pylan-Van, who during distance learning developed new techniques to help students create stability and balance at home by instigating routines, and she also enlisted the support of a stuffed moose named Stanley to help her young students open up about their feelings of loss, anxiety, and frustration. We think of Santee Learning Complex 12th grade English teacher, Dr. Claudia Caldado, who harnessed the power of Instagram to spread word of her one-woman bookmobile project for students and families in South LA throughout the pandemic. And we think of Coldwater Canyon elementary teacher Eric Puel, who used his own money to invest in a green screen, lights, and an editing program to create a series of videos using song and animation to reinforce the concepts he was teaching his early childhood special education students. All of this reaffirms that the phrase learning loss has no place when it comes to our students. That cannot be the narrative when we return to school in August. We reject the deficit mindset that looks at our students as if they are behind. Instead, we lead with a growth mindset and recognize all the learning growth they had in this unprecedented time. Students learn survival skills, tech skills, and adaptation skills. They learned how to pivot between platforms, how to move from screen time to book work, and how to help brothers and sisters with their homework. Our children are brilliant and resilient, and we honor that. We are ready to meet them where they are and move them forward. Educators change lives. This past year, we saved lives. We organized for a safe return to physical schools and saved potentially thousands of lives. Our students, families across Los Angeles, and our own. You did that. Through organizing with families, member unity, and the strength those things bring to the bargaining table, we won a uniform plan for the safe reopening of schools. LA Unified has the lowest number of COVID infections among the nation's largest school districts because of the safety protocols we fought for and won. And because of the enforcement and accountability that followed, led by UTLA chapter leaders and school-based COVID compliance task force. The current surge in COVID cases is why UTLA members fought so hard for mask mandates, ventilation, and other safety protocols for our schools. Vaccines are like seatbelts, necessary but not invincible. Just like we need seatbelts, airbags, and speed limits to make our cars safer, we need masks, ventilation, and testing to keep school communities safe. Once again, we are facing a fluid, fast-changing environment for the pandemic. As the start of the school year approaches, we will be in regular contact with you on confirming that protocols and supplies are in place to ensure the return to full in-person learning follows the safety standards we negotiated. We will never forget why we fought so tenaciously against an unsafe return. COVID-19 laid bare inequities that have been visible in our classrooms and communities for decades. The impact of the pandemic ripped and continues to rip through the Black, brown, and working class families that make up the overwhelming majority of the families we serve. We will never forget that when political pressure to open at its highest, 1 in 3 children in LAUSD was testing positive, while in affluent neighborhoods, that number was 1 in 25. We will never forget that while wealthier and healthier communities pushed relentlessly to reopen schools before it was safe, some of our students' families were losing housing, losing jobs, and losing loved ones to hospitalization and death. COVID-19 laid bare inequities that have been visible in our classrooms and communities for decades, and that truth drove our determination to put health and safety first. During the height of this pandemic, UTLA was slammed for our fight for safety and for using our collective voice to uplift the needs of our communities, including paid sick leave for all workers, protection from evictions, and investment in healthcare and jobs programs. UTLA is a union that fights for the common good because we know that what happens in our classrooms is impacted by what happens in our communities. Anti-union and right-wing forces weaponize the moment to come after us in coordinated attacks to try to demonize educators. The vitriol was intense at times, and I know it hit many of us hard. I'll be honest, folks. The attacks that came at me personally on social media and Fox News were unprecedented. I was ready for them, but my son and my mother were not. It was painful to see the worry and concern reflected in my family's faces. But as I told them, these attacks are not about me. They are about the collective power that union educators have built together. They were attacking the power we demonstrated with our 2019 strike and our unity behind a safe return to schools. In our safety fight, 91% of members who voted said they would refuse to go back to unsafe working and learning conditions. That unity is a threat to the forces that wanted to reopen schools and the economy, no matter the human cost. Our union is a threat to the powerful. Always has been and always will be. We will never back down on our principles and our commitment to form our principles democratically, using all of our structures, members, UTLA chapters, our board of directors, and House of Representatives, to continue to be a fighting union that leads on social and racial justice as we fight for positive working conditions, health care, and salary. We have to take on complicated issues with an eye always on the pathway to solidarity. That pathway means we debate, We disagree with passion and respect. Better decisions come when we consider multiple perspectives and don't allow outside forces to divide us. That is the foundation of a democratic union like ours. We won't always agree on every issue, but we can't let that stop us from having the hard, courageous conversations and pushing each other to understand where others are coming from. Now, we look at other ways we've worked with families, students, and the community to move the needle on social and racial justice. Last school year, a long-term student-led movement to reimagine school safety was amplified by the reckoning on race after the murder of George Floyd. In a unanimous vote, the LAUSD school board cut a third of its police officers, banned the use of pepper spray on students, and diverted funds from school police to improve the education of Black, brown, and vulnerable students. The work to reimagine school safety continues with our students leading the way. In November, we worked the phones diligently to re-elect LAUSD School Board member Scott Schmerelson. Measure RR, the $7 billion LAUSD bond measure to modernize aging schools, passed easily. In March, we launched a national civil rights campaign with parents and unions across the country to fulfill the promise of special education. The campaign is laying the groundwork for a multi-year collaborative organizing campaign to finally fully fund the Individuals with Disabilities Act and bring billions of dollars to schools to support our most vulnerable students. You'll hear from some of those people driving this campaign at the leadership conference this week. And powerfully toward the end of the school year, UTLA and Reclaim Our Schools Los Angeles organized around an historic infusion of funding to demand an LAUSD budget that invests in mental health services and other student supports. Organizing led to a number of victories, including investment in 30 additional community schools, which are anchors of their neighborhoods with an integrated focus on academics, youth development, family support, and health and social services. $56.7 million more in funding for the Black Student Achievement Plan, which includes investing in culturally affirming curriculum and more partnerships with community-based organizations. Redoubling efforts to get a full-time nurse or other qualified healthcare professional in every school. Hiring 930 additional school psychologists, counselors, psychiatric social workers, and pupil services and attendance counselors, and more than 2,000 new teachers to help meet our students' mental health and academic needs. We'll dive deeper into that infusion of funding coming to LAUSD in a minute. While we recognize that these immediate victories wouldn't have been possible without all of the parents, students, educators, and community members who were at the school board every Tuesday at the end of the school year and who spoke up to demand the schools our students and families deserve. These wins are significant, and they will make a difference in welcoming our students back in August. But our work goes on to truly transform our public education in LA. A return to school must not mean a return to the status quo. The recovery cannot be a return to pre-pandemic conditions. Recovery must be racially just, student-centered, and equity-focused. And that return must prioritize the communities most significantly harmed by COVID-19 and decades of inequality. We will not accept a return to normal because normal wasn't working for all of our students. Too often, normal was shuttered libraries with out-of-date. Normal was huge class sizes and overcrowded classrooms. Normal meant schools without full-time counselors and nurses. Normal was society failing our students. For the first time in decades, we have the funding to dream big and fight for our babies. For next school year alone, because of increased money coming from the state and federal governments, LAUSD's budget is $5.4 billion than last year. That is by far the biggest jump I have seen in my 26-year career as an educator in Los Angeles. It is truly once-in-a-generation funding. The infusion of funding coming to LAUSD parallels the approach of full contract bargaining with the district. Our current contract expires in June 22, and full contract bargaining will come about when we can bring any issue forward in negotiations that we are willing to fight for. As of now, much of the increase in funding is temporary. It comes with an expiration date of 2025. But there is one thing this tells us. The money to fund public education in a way that meets the needs of our students, our members, and our communities exists. It exists now, and it will exist in 2025. We cannot accept temporary investments. We must fight to make sure this money is put into long-term, structural improvements in our schools and chapters. And at the same time, fight to ensure that the money keeps coming well into the future after the temporary funding is spent. That means we have to organize that much deeper, better, and broader to make demands now on that money. We have to organize deeper, better, and broader to force LAUSD to seize this moment and make meaningful change. Organizing deeper, better, and broader means having a UTLA chapter at every school that engages all members. We build the fight district-wide by leaning into the structure we know builds power. Having a mighty UTLA chapter at every site across the district, so everyone from your principal to local superintendents, to the school board and district management, and the LA community knows we are united for what our students deserve. Organizing deeper, better, and broader means having a chapter action team, or CAT, at every site. The basic principle of the CAT: for every 10 members, there is one person in charge of communicating to those 10 folks and moving them to action. CATs were critical in organizing our strike, and they will be critical to winning in the future. Organizing deeper, better, and broader means all UTLA members collectively setting our priorities and being ready to fight for them. This fall, we will launch a 3-step member-driven program to: 1, identify issues that educators, students, and parents care most about. 2, develop a platform of bargaining goals based on those issues. And 3, hold a full membership vote on that bargaining platform before we go to the bargaining table. We will be organized, united, and ready to fight even before the first proposal is being made at that bargaining table. The first thing we will do is hold chapter meetings and small group meetings across LAUSD to talk together as educators about what we most need. Think about issues and concerns that are sometimes pushed under the rug. We need to talk about the nitty-gritty and also the aspirational in an open-ended way that drives at issues that are deeply felt. After the year we have had that overturned our world as we know it, we need to start this conversation from scratch with no assumptions on what our priorities should be. What issues, if fixed, would make the biggest difference in improving teaching and learning? What pay, benefits, and working condition issues should we fight to address in our contract campaign? What do our students most need when at school? When our students go home, what issues are they facing that create challenges to their learning? From your experience working and talking with parents and students, what fights for school improvements do you believe are most broadly and deeply felt by parents, youth, and community? Chapter leaders, you will play an indispensable role in this process, convening and facilitating open discussion in your schools and chapters, and reporting back on those discussions so that the UTLA members you work with have a voice in shaping our bargaining goals. This is a deep and democratic process, and the results will be a set of bargaining demands that we all can unite behind. Having strong UTLA chapters will ensure this dialogue reaches every corner of our union and that every member is connected to the campaign of collective action that it's going to take to win. I am so excited about this process. I want you to think about the issues that keep you up at night, that you stop a colleague in the hallway to talk about, text about, and that drive conversations at lunchtime. Through these conversations, starting at the chapter level, we will build a solid platform to make sure the money flowing to our schools is effectively used for our students and their needs. We will build a platform that we can organize around and spread our vision for for healthy, healing, racially just schools to the broader community. We will build a platform so that we can begin bargaining the full contract well before it expires and lead from a position of strength. All this gives me hope. Hope that we can come together behind a transformative vision for our schools and fight forward for racial and social justice. But there are threats out there too. Existential threats that we must organize against and defeat. Over the summer, without transparency or accountability, some LAUSD school district officials began pushing what can only be called an internal voucher scheme for public schools. The work was funded by a grant from Betsy DeVos when she was Trump's Secretary of Education. Yes, that Betsy DeVos. The Betsy DeVos whose sole mission as secretary was to dismantle public education and funnel public dollars to private religious schools. DeVos got the idea from well-funded right-wing dark money operatives like ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. ALEC's sole purpose is to design policies that can be enacted by state and local governments to undo our social contract and advance a hardcore right-wing agenda that increases their corporate and billionaire member profits. Under so-called student-centered funding, money would move with each student instead of being allocated centrally for staff and programs. It sounds like a good idea when you first hear about it, but in reality, it's proven to be biased, ineffective, and a threat to neighborhood schools. In Chicago, they have a similar method of funding, and it's been a disaster. Our Chicago Union brothers, sisters, and siblings tell us the funding scheme was sold as a way to achieve greater equity for Black and brown students, and it's done the opposite. Schools compete for students who basically are treated like portable ATMs. The result has been that there have been winners and losers. Schools in Black and brown communities have lost librarians, arts, music, and more. And veteran Black educators have been pushed out in favor of less expensive, newer teachers. Struggling schools lose funding, which in turn accelerates enrollment loss, which leads to an ongoing spiral that ends in school closures in the neighborhood struggling the most in the first place. Folks who have been with us for a while may be thinking of the disastrous public school choice scheme from 2009, pushed by the privatizers. Public school choice was created to give away both struggling schools and brand new school buildings to outside charter operators. Educators, parents, and community members righteously fought public school choice tooth and nail, and in the end, we won. We will do that again. When? I open tonight with the story of Claudette Colvin, who one day in 1955 walked out of her public school classroom and into the fight for civil rights by refusing to give up her seat on a segregated bus. I close today by repeating her words. When it comes to justice, there is no easy way to get it. You can't sugarcoat it. You have to take a stand. UTLA members, with the fights behind us and the fight ahead of us, we know this to be true. There is no easy way to get justice, but we can work toward justice together. Justice for our profession is organizing behind workspaces of respect, collaboration, and safety so we can do our best work for our communities. Justice for our students is building the healthy, healing, racially just schools they deserve and building a vision for those schools side by side with educators and their families. We celebrate our voice, our vehicle for collective action, our union. And we dig deep and ask ourselves, in the fight for justice, how do we show up? Because there is a brighter day ahead, but if that won't happen, if we are just depending on a few people to pull us through, we all need to row this boat. How do we show up as educators? How do we show up as union members? How do we show up as leaders? We are United Teachers Los Angeles, a leading edge force in the fight forward for racial and social justice. Our unity will lead the way. Stay UTLA strong, because together we rise. Together we will fight forward for the healthy, healing, racially just schools our students deserve. Thank you. Thank you all for all of the work you've done. Have a great night and a great UTLA Leadership Conference. And now I'm proud to introduce the other UTLA officers. I am so grateful to be working with this dedicated, focused, and strategic leadership team. And here they are now.